Hello everyone. Today we're going to make some beef barley soup from scratch this time. My previous video I made it with some leftover beef and it turned out really good, and since then I've been sort of craving it. So I went ahead and decided I'd make a video on something if you had to do from scratch if you didn't have any leftover beef. So I went ahead and got some chuck, and I'm basically going to put this together almost exactly the same way I put my beef stew together. And to be honest, I don't think there's any difference between beef stew and beef barley soup other than replacing the potatoes for the barley. So I think that's the only big difference between beef stew and beef barley soup. So let's go over the ingredients real quick. We've got some celery, carrots, and onions, and mushrooms. Those will be our vegetables. We'll be putting those in at the second half of the recipe. We also got some boneless chuck. I'm not quite sure I'm going to use all of this. I'm just going to have to eyeball it and see how much my pan will fit. I've got some beef stock, just made up with some better than bouillon beef stock. I've got some browning. I got a little flavor I'm going to use to flour to use to brown up the beef a little bit and to give the sauce just a little bit of thickness. We have our barley here. We're going to use a cup of that along with 4 cups of water. I've got some dried thyme. I've got some oregano. I'm also going to go get a snip of rosemary sprig off the bush out back. I don't have that out yet, but I will. And I got some parsley I'm going to chop up and throw in at the end. So that's pretty much everything we need. Oh, also a little splash of wine, a little red wine also is going to go in there. Other than that, that's all we're going to put in there. I'm going to get that beef cut up and get it going first, and then I'll come back and get the vegetables prepped right after that. So I'll be back in a minute once the beef's ready to go in. Okay, so there you go. That's this batch is about done. I'm ready for the next one. Let me just go ahead and show you. See, you want that browned up. You do not want it gray and steamed up. So do what you have to do. Make your batches smaller. Generally keeps it from steaming. And turn your keep your heat on medium high is another good way to brown them. And also just let them sit there for about 3 to 4 minutes. Don't touch them at all, and that helps get a nice browning. And then I flip each one individually. It's a little bit time consuming, but that way at least I get 2 sides on each piece. That works as well. So keep those tips in mind. I'm going to go ahead and do the second batch. Set this one aside on a plate, and then get you ready for the next. Okay, so before I add the beef stock, I'm just going to go ahead and deglaze this pan with a couple splashes of red wine. If you like measurements, I would have to say that was about a ½ cup. And I'm just trying to deglaze the pan, get all the brown charred off the bottom and get that worked into the soup itself. Most of it will come off eventually. I'm also going to add the other half of the first half of the beef. And now I'm going to put in the beef broth. This is about 16 ounces, give or take. I want to make sure that that's covered. And what I'm going to do next here is just bring that up to a boil, turn it down to medium, and cover it. And I'm going to just let that sit for about an hour on medium. And after that, I'm going to prep the vegetables while I'm waiting. Oh, we want the dried herbs too. So there goes the sprig of thyme. We also, the sprig of rosemary. Sorry, I'm working and thinking at the same time. About a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons to half a tablespoon of dried thyme, and probably equal amount dried oregano. So let's just stir that in. It's not quite coming to a boil yet, but as soon as it does, I'm gonna turn the heat down to medium low. I just want a real low simmer. And then we'll come back for the next step after. So this has been going for about an hour, and this is about the type of slow boil that I was talking about, and I've got it on medium low. And now what I want to do is add my vegetables, which I'm going to try to do with one hand. And most of them made it. Lost a little bit of the celery. So I'm going to add that. Oh, by the way, I took the rosemary sprig out about halfway through when I came into the kitchen. All I could smell was rosemary, so the rosemary was really overpowering. So probably like half that would have been a little bit better, because I just thought that rosemary was pretty strong smelling. Maybe it was just a fresh sprig off the bush, I don't know. But I didn't want it to be too much. And now I've got my rinsed barley, 1 cup, and 4 cups of water to match that. I looked on the box, and the box said 1 cup per 4 cups of water, so that's exactly what I did. So I just tried to match all that. So I'm going to mix everything in here. I'm going to bring this back to boil. As a matter of fact, I'm going to raise my heat up so it will come to a boil a little bit faster. And once that's coming to a boil, I'm going to bring it back down to medium low again, and cover it and let it go for another hour. So I got it up to a boil now. All the vegetables are in, and what I'm gonna do right now is just cover it up and bring it back down to a medium low and let it set for another hour, 50 minutes to an hour. As soon as the barley is ready to go, it should be ready to serve. So I'll just keep checking it, but 50 minutes to an hour seems to be about. Okay, so it's been about an hour, and everything looks great. I'm gonna put a little fresh parsley in there. We're gonna mix it up. Everything looks just perfect. And we're gonna pull out a ladle. And ladle it into a bowl. And I've already tried this. It really looked worked out pretty good, and I really enjoyed it. So hope you give that a try, and thanks for watching.